I really hate Sukuna.
Really? Wow.
But he really is the strongest in history. A lot of you made fun of me for making a video before chapter 251 where I said that there's no way Maki is going to swoop down and end Sukuna. Well, joke's on you, because she didn't. Okay, she did. But it's Gege behind the wheel of this clown car manga, so his dear Sukiwuki is 10 billion% fine and dandy. I don't know how, probably through some means of more Megami abuse, but we're not here to talk about that today. What I want to talk about is what comes next, because Sukuna still has a game changer to reveal. However, it won't be much of a reveal since I, the strongest nerd in history, have already worked out exactly what Sukuna's technique is, and holy shit, it's broken as hell. No matter how much you hate Sukuna, there is no denying that he is the king of cooking, because when he finally reveals this technique, our guys are gonna clock how badly they f***ed up. So without any more waffle, let's see what Ryomen Sukuna is truly capable of. One very important thing that chapter 251 told us is that Dismantle and Cleave are actually in fact part of Sukuna's innate technique. We also know this because the slashes are the guaranteed hit of his domain. So if Dismantle and Cleave are his actual technique, then what is the mysterious black box? While Sukuna takes the piss out of Jogo, he mentions that he won't do anything petty like explain his technique, right before opening the black box of arse-pulls. This suggests that the box is actually his curse technique. Yet, so is Dismantle. So how does that work? Well, it's possible that Dismantle and Cleave are an application of his true technique, where he has made a binding vow to not require the Fuga chant to use them. It's also possible that the slashes are the reverse technique of his black box. In fact, I even once saw someone theorize that Dismantle is simply throwing a really compact black box. This would low-key make sense because we do know that Gojo has a weakness for boxes, but also no. To be honest, this theory video does not rely on knowing that the box and Dismantle are connected. All that matters is that we continue with the assumption that the black box is in some way Sukuna's actual innate technique. So now to talk about the real reason why you clicked onto this video. The reveal of Sukuna's black box technique. When rereading Jujutsu Kaisen for the 15th time this week, I finally managed to string some dots together and realize that we have already been told everything we need to know about Sukuna's true technique. For example, after staring at the word Fuga for 3 hours, wondering why I didn't know what the f this word meant, I finally clocked that it wasn't English. After another 30 minutes stressing that I don't know any Japanese, I remembered that Google Translate was a thing, which then told me that the word meant refinement, or at least the main definition was refinement. There were other words, but I thought this one was the most fitting. With this information, I started to realize that refinement was an amazing word to describe both Sukuna's character and his abilities. My theory is through means of refinement, Sukuna is able to transmute his cursed energy so it can have different properties. For example, making it sharp like a knife, hot like fire, cold like ice, or even into something like lightning. That's right, Sukuna is the Avatar. Okay, that was a joke. Please don't leave. You see, I say it's a joke, but now that I think of it, that isn't even a bad theory. Like, Gege literally gave him arrow tattoos all over his body, and he can kind of— Shut up! Okay, fine. I know I was going way off topic. Right, where were we? Ah, yeah. Have you ever noticed how most of Sukuna's greatest weapons involve cursed energy being refined so it has a certain trait? We've seen him use Dismantle and Cleave constantly, and we've seen a form of fire ability 3 times in total. He also had a cursed tool called Kamatoke, which is basically Thor's hammer from Wish, and he had another cursed tool in the Heion era, which could probably earthbend or some shit. He also owns a mysterious ice-wielding femboy who adores him, and he tolerates them for some reason. Now all we need to do is connect the dots. Sukuna constantly wants to push himself to be the best possible Jujutsu sorcerer he can. He cuts absolutely no corners and even goes to means like destroying his own body to have extra arms, mouths, and eyes for optimized output and effectiveness. But why stop there? Sukuna also likes to carry at least 2 cursed tools around, and drag Arame around with him, and honestly it just seems like major overkill. But not to Sukuna. Now, if you recall, no one can outright use multiple curse techniques at once. So if Sukuna's technique did involve transmuting cursed energy, then he would likely not be able to use multiple types at once. Although, since it's his main technique that is converting it into cursed energy, I guess each type isn't actually a technique. So there is a possibility he could use multiple, but I think it would probably be very inefficient use of his resources. So part of my theory is that Kamatoke, the unknown cursed tool, and maybe even Arame are all extensions of Sukuna's technique. Having vessels, whether human or object, to hold applications of his technique can allow Sukuna to effortlessly utilize them all without wasting time performing the open chant and selecting one type. Also, don't be confused. Me theorizing that Arame is an extension of Sukuna's technique as some sort of vessel is a very stretchy part of this theory as well, and not really one you need to focus on if you don't want to. I think the rest of it is what's more important. Either way, the idea of extending all of his abilities into weapons so he can utilize them all at once sounds like a very Sukuna thing to do, because he does just love overkill. Now you're probably wondering what the hell this has to do with a black box. Either that or my waffling has lulled you to sleep, in which case wake up because this is important. Believe it or not, Sukuna is not the only character to talk about black boxes in Jujutsu Kaisen. Both Shoko Ieri and Kusakabe GPT have talked about the brain being a black box when it comes to understanding how curse techniques actually work. And believe it or not, what they actually refer to is a black box system, which I have recently learned is not a literal black box. A black box system is simply an unknown process which converts an input into an output. For example, you may run a line of code and receive an output or a result without actually understanding how the program achieved it. In Jujutsu Kaisen terms, your prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for cursed techniques, has a black box system of its own. You provide an input, being cursed energy, and then the brain completes an unknown process, leaving you with a cursed technique, the output. So it is my belief that Sukuna's technique involves opening the black box in order to understand the processes involved in cursed technique creation. And this is very fitting since Sukuna's pursuit for Jujutsu knowledge is a massive part of his character. It makes sense that he would be able to gain secret knowledge that other people don't have access to. Let's just look at the fight with Jogo. At the end, he chanted Fuga and Open before mimicking Jogo's fire technique. I think it's literally as simple as him examining the process involved in the technique's creation and then refining his cursed energy to replicate it. In fact, the only thing about this idea I find doesn't quite add up is the fact that Sukuna actually used flames before this point in Jujutsu Kaisen. After using Malevolent Shrine on the finger bearer, it burst into flames, and in the anime these flames were purple. This either has something to do with the domains attack, which we don't know about, or Sukuna healed out his burnt curse technique and used a flame ability he already had access to. But to be honest, that feels very unnecessary and complete overkill for this very fraudulent curse. Although to be fair, so was the domain expansion, and Sukuna does just enjoy overkill, so maybe he did, who knows. And I think it's a real possibility that Gege just didn't really know what he was doing at that point, and it's just an inconsistency. I also feel it's very necessary to distinguish this theory from Yuta's copy technique. Sukuna literally learns how they work and how to truly make them his own technique. It is not a copy ability. It's also my belief that he cannot learn and replicate the processes behind inherited techniques like Ten Shadows, since he literally needed to take over Megami's body in order to use them. If you think about it, it does make sense, since inherited techniques obviously have a genetic component, unlike techniques manifested by cursed spirits like Jogo. Now, I think this theory of knowledge and refinement holds perfectly well on its own. However, you are left with the question of how exactly does Sukuna peer into the black box systems of other people's brains? Well, if you're like me and want to dig a little deeper, then we're going to add even more to this theory, and I think this is a very interesting part. It's actually my favorite, and I think it makes perfect sense, although you don't have to listen to it. This theory holds perfectly well on its own, and you can just stop here. But if you want to learn a little bit more, then I really suggest watching this, and my next video, because it's going to cover this topic very strongly. And it's all about the soul. The soul is a very important theme in Jujutsu Kaisen. What with Mahito's idol transfiguration, Yuji's indomitable soul, and even his new ability to strike and potentially swap with the soul. Now, I am actually going to make a completely separate video about how Yuji acquired this ability very soon, but this is Sukuna's video, so we're going to focus on him. Yeah, that's right, I've adapted and become the very thing I swore to destroy, a f***ing Sukuna glazer. Okay, time to go jerk off to a Rame, I guess. Ryomen Sukuna obviously is aware of the soul and can protect it, since Mahito was unable to transfigure Yuji under Sukuna's own protection. And Sukuna seems to be surviving Yuji's soul strikes despite all soul attacks normally negating conventional durability. There's also a chance that Sukuna himself can damage the soul or alter its shape since he did actually hurt Mahito. It's also never really questioned how back in the Heian era, Sukuna was able to change his body from that of a human to a four-armed, two-mouthed, four-eyed monster. No other sorcerers have even been seen to make so much as a minor deliberate change to their physiology in order to give them an advantage, and I feel like the likes of Kenjaku and Kashimo definitely would have. In fact, the only other character capable of outright changing their form is Mahito through the manipulation of his soul, because we know that the body forms around the soul, so if you change the shape of the soul, the body will change to match it, which is how Mahito transfigures humans, and himself. So when you think about these things and you actually ask these questions, you realize that it's maybe possible Sukuna has an idol transfiguration ability. Maybe back in the Heian era, Sukuna encountered the curse of humans that came before Mahito and learnt their technique, since we know that cursed spirits like Mahito are eventually reborn. Regardless of how he acquired this technique, however, it's strongly suggested that Sukuna is aware of and can at very least manipulate his own soul, which in turn allows him to change his body. A potential theory involving Sukuna's technique and the soul lies in his supposed ability to literally peer into or communicate with the soul of others. When Mahito first tried to transfigure Yuji Itadori, Sukuna and Mahito's souls conversed in Sukuna's own innate domain, and in the domain, Sukuna then attacked Mahito, which left lasting effects, meaning that he did actually damage his soul. Sukuna also conversed with Jogo to pay his respects after killing him, and he did the same with Kashimo. Now, one thing this suggests is that the soul actually can be sustained after death, at least for a short period of time, which is also supported by Geto momentarily fighting against Kenjaku in Shibuya train station. Strangely though, Sukuna was not at the airport after Gojo died, suggesting that the Six Eyes may somehow protect Gojo's soul from entry, or Sukuna didn't want to for some reason. It's been shown by Mahito and Kenjaku in the past that altering the shape of the soul to in turn alter the brain can allow full access to new curse techniques. So maybe Sukuna forces his way into other people's souls, learns of the brain's shape, and then alters his own to access the technique. And this is the idea I'm most interested in. I feel like it's been very overlooked how Sukuna just casually converses with other people's souls, as if he's literally forcing his way in. We also know that Yuji is supposedly meant to get Sukuna's technique, and if you ask me, it looks like his technique has been revealed and it has a lot to do with the soul. So if you reverse engineer the problem, looking at what Yuji's ability is should be able to tell you what Sukuna's ability involves. And I think it involves the soul, very heavily. So I really like this idea of Sukuna being able to force his way into other people's souls, examine its shape, and then alter his own in order to access their techniques. Since we know that the shape of the soul determines the shape of the body, which would then determine the shape of the brain, which would then determine the brain's features, and then those features determine what your cursed technique would be, because it's all to do with the prefrontal cortex and all other confusing shit like that. The point is, I feel like the way he peers into the black box system is by examining the shape of other people's souls, and then replicating it by manipulating his own soul, something we know he can probably do because he changed his body. That basically summarizes the video. I'm actually going to expand even further on this more soul-focused idea in my next video, but that video is going to heavily involve Yuji Itadori and stray slightly off today's topic. So if you're interested in discussing the significance of the soul to the likes of Sukuna and Yuji, then make sure to keep an eye out for that next upload. It's basically going to be very similar to this video, but talking about Yuji Itadori and his technique instead of Sukuna. I'm 99% certain that Sukuna's curse technique will be properly explained in the upcoming chapters, so I figured now was a good time to throw my final thoughts on Sukuna's abilities out there. Remember though that this is just a theory video, so please do share your own thoughts and theories in the comments below. I'm not saying this is necessarily true, I just think this is what Sukuna's abilities are. I'm also going to be making a second channel in which I'm going to be doing reaction videos to pretty much any show you want me to watch. I'm currently doing Avatar: The Last Airbender, the Netflix edition, and then I'll also cover a load of other animes that I haven't seen. So if you enjoy reaction videos and you enjoy my content, then I would greatly appreciate if you go and subscribe to that channel. I'll leave a link in the description below, please enjoy. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Thank you very much for watching, now piss off.